and we'll go through some of those there. So I'll pass you over to Sally Lockyer, who is the CEO at Surrey FA.
Thanks, James. First of all, I'd just like to say a big welcome to everybody, and thank you for our esteemed guests in joining us tonight to celebrate Black Lives Matter. I'm thrilled we've got such a strong inclusivity advisory group here at Surrey FA, and I think when I joined the organisation in January, I looked at our diversity and inclusion across the organisation, and I think it's fair to say it's pretty horrified. We've got a lot of work to do, but I think we're very keen now as we move forward to take action, not just words, but actually take action. The team have been doing a fantastic job to address all of the issues that we need to in this area. And I was pretty pleased just a few weeks ago when our board at Surrey FA signed off wholeheartedly on our governance code vision, which is around making sure that we're fully representative of the population in Surrey across all of our organisations. So not just the board, all of our working groups, and particularly how we communicate with all the different diverse groups. Not only did they sign it off, they said, how quickly can we do it? So I think that's a really good sign of an action-orientated organisation that really does want to impact change. That's it from me to start with. I'd just like to say big thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone for joining us. And I'll hand over to Riz to do all the official introductions.
Thank you, Sally. To be honest, since you come in post in January, I think the IAG really appreciate all the support you've given to us, and we're really looking forward to really making a change this year as well. So firstly, welcome everyone. Obviously, everyone knows Black History Month in the UK is every year. It's a time to highlight and celebrate the lives and work of Black people in our country and across the world as well. This year, however, it's taking place in a world that has changed dramatically, not just because we're living through a pandemic, but of the conversation around racism that's really swept the globe as well. In the wake of the events in this summer, I think Black History Month this year seems to be more so important than ever before. Football, athletes, and clubs still continue to take the knee, and I'm seeing a lot more content around Black History Month and the history of Black footballers in the country, and the positive impact they've had on the future generations. I'm sure, like many of the panel members here today, you're often asked to speak about the barriers you may face, but not everyone talks about the impact of the barriers, on your journey, your drive, what you've learned, what advice you'll now give to others listening in on this call, and to those who obviously can't join us today. For me, Black History Month should be a time to remember, reflect, and celebrate those who are leaders in the game like yourselves, but also giving a helping hand and to aspire those to get onto the ladder. So to start off with, what I'd like to do is, I think it's important for the panel members to, if you give yourself a brief introduction and just answer a quick question, just what Black History Month, why it's important to you, and how can we ensure that Black History Month goes beyond October. I'll start with Cecil first. You're on mute, Cecil.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hi. Obviously can't reply back, but hi. Yeah, my name's Cecil. That question now, Black History Month, how the importance of it to me is, well, I think this month it's my everyday really. So this month is kind of irrelevant to me, if I'm completely honest. I live being Black every day of my life, so it's very much just every day. I feel I've got two Black parents, my mum and my dad, so yeah, it's every day. It's important to me. Just the month in its essence is important for, I believe, other people to just understand our journeys and how we are as people and what we've done in celebration of it for this country and all across the world. I think that's what is important for me. I think for others to understand the importance of Black History Month and who we are as people, that is kind of my say. So yeah. Oh, I can't hear you. Are you muted now?
Yeah, Cecil, can you give her a little background of who you are as well? And
okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so my name's Cecil Jee. I was an ex-professional footballer. I signed professional at 16 years old at Crawley Town in League One. I thought it was my dream. I was a young boy. I was like living out my dream as being a professional footballer. I found out after a few months that it wasn't what I expected. Went through a hard time with my manager, who's now been blacklisted and not allowed to work with footballers at all. Fell out of love with the game. Left Crawley Town after 2 years, and then after that, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of lost. A lot of players fall into this bracket a lot, but luckily, I just change my whole career and said I want to become a performer/dancer, and that led to many opportunities. I went to Italia Conti to train for 3 years. During that time, I became Marcus Rashford's body double. So I do all his adverts, his campaigns. I did dance music videos for Little Mix. I've worked as a presenter for Sky with Anthony Joshua and other various brands, England Cricket. Done that. I've modelled for the top brands, Sainsbury's, To Clothing. I've on adverts. So I did a lot. Football changed my career completely. During this time of being a performer, I set up a company called Talent Transfer, where I mentor young footballers about what they can do with their careers after football, during their careers as a footballer, and how you should be treated as a footballer. So I also run that. And just to update you all, my latest role, my latest job, I'm currently at the office in the studio. I am AFTV's new presenter. So I work for AFTV and do the fan cams and work with Robbie. And yeah, so that's currently what I'm doing. Sorry, that's a long intro. There's a lot to get through, but we'll dive into it and dive into it later on in the show, I'm sure. But that's me.
Thanks, Cecil, and congrats on your new role as well. I'll come to you next about Mac. So why is Black History Month important to you, and how can we ensure that we take this engagement beyond October?
Yeah, thank you, Riz. Firstly, my name is Mac. I'm CEO of an organisation called The Equal Group. Essentially, we help companies engage in equality, diversity and inclusion in a meaningful and sustainable way. Got the privilege of being on the Surrey FA's Inclusion Advisory Group with Riz and Cigdem. In terms of Black History Month, I think it's crucial. I went through my whole educational background not knowing or not learning about Black history in any formal way. I kind of had to go through that process of educating myself at the age of 20 and really kind of digging into my history, digging into the history of people that look like me, and the contributions that we've made, which are often overlooked in public life. So for me, Black History Month gives us an opportunity to revisit that, to really highlight some of the things that are commonly overlooked in kind of general consciousness, and really just, as Cecil said, to kind of allow other people to engage with the story. I think it's about really spreading awareness of what it means to be Black in this day and age, what are some of the challenges, but also what are some of the things that we hope for in terms of moving forward. In terms of how we keep that conversation going, for me, it's about being very vocal about some of the challenges that we face, some of the inequalities that are prevalent within society. Obviously, within this specific conversation, looking at football, looking at opportunities to engage and make sure that the environment that we create is holistic and inclusive of everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mac. Kasha, if I come to you next, though, if you give a brief background on yourself, and if you don't want to answer the same question as well, what Black History Month means to you.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Kasha, Petit. I work at AFTV Wimbledon Foundation currently as Female Development and Inclusion Officer, and I've also been playing football since about age 12 for QPR, and previously worked for QPR in the community as well. For me, similar to what Max said, the Black History Month of having to look for yourself and finding out about different leaders and people in power and what they've gone through yourself. And there wasn't really enough educational content out there, apart from literally what's given to you in front of you in schools. So I think for me, especially this month, and especially with a lot of time during lockdown, the things going on this year allowed me to really dive deep into looking at what I could find in terms of education and sharing that and getting that out there. So for me personally, this month I've looked at how we can like spread that to not just only kids but also adults, and what content can be out there. So I've been sharing a lot of books each week on a Friday, which apply to, like I said, some of the kids, which might be they've got 2 different backgrounds. So they might have a parent and that's from like one from England, one from a different country, and now like trying to incorporate how that might look like for them, as well as just kids that have gone through what we've gone through and trying to grow up and impact their community. So that's what it's been for me personally.
Thank you, Kasha. And obviously we'll delve a bit more into the work you're doing as the conversation flows as well. Cornelius, if I come to you, if you let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Cornelius. I'm currently a semi-professional coach at Tooting and Mitcham Football Club. My background is started playing football at a young age, got scouted for a few teams, but for a long time I was kind of like getting disillusioned with football. So, and I think for me, it was just the things I was seeing in the game at the time. I had an opportunity to go back to Nigeria, where my parents are born and from. And I went back for 2 years. You know, I studied over there. I learned a lot about my heritage, learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, you know, being black, because obviously growing up, being born in England and everything like that, as the rest of my peers have just said on the panel, we don't really get taught, you know, nothing about ourselves. You know, majority of us get taught that we're, you know, we were slaves, we were this, we were that, but nothing about, you know, what we are, you know. So that was a real eye opener for me going back. Obviously coming back, I came back at the age of 21. Back in the days there at 21, you couldn't make it as a footballer. So for me, I went, you know, through the semi-professional route, what's called route, played for a few semi-professional clubs. And, you know, I just didn't see no pathways getting back into the pro setting. So for me, I went a different route. I set up my own business and I went that journey. But after a few years, it just wasn't, I wasn't content with it. It wasn't something I enjoyed. I was making a lot of money from my previous business ventures, but it wasn't something I really wanted to do. So I had a discussion, especially with my my wife now, which is my girlfriend, and we both decided I needed to go into something that I was passionate about, which was always football. You know, by then, obviously, I was too old to go back into it. But I said to myself, what realm could I go into if I went into football? And it was coaching. So I started off, I went really backwards, like back into basics, like did my level 1 just to see if I was going to enjoy it and stuff like that. Did that, started to do all my coaching badges, started to go around the countries, getting experience, traveling, did a degree in coaching, and just really started to go on my football journey through that. And then now I coached at Chelsea Development, set up my own little coaching company as well. And just been doing things through that. Got an opportunity to go and work at Tooting and Mitcham for the under 18s or under 23s. Did okay with that. The chairman really enjoyed what we were doing there and, you know, promoted us to the first team. So, you know, I'm joint manager at Tooting and Mitcham with my colleague, Ashley Bosa. So that's my journey so far, guys.
Brilliant. Cornelius, obviously we had a good chat last week as well. So again, we're going to a bit more as that conversation flows as well. Cigdem, if I come to you as well, so you can introduce yourself and then you know what Black History Month means to you.
Hi everyone, really great to join you firstly, and really good to hear some of your opening thoughts. My name's Cigdem Turkan, as Riz mentioned. I'm part of the Surrey FA's IAG, new member actually, so this is one of the first events that I've been a part of. My full-time role is with Palace for Life Foundation as the education manager and the race equality lead, and we're the official charity of Crystal Palace Football Club. I also work on the Women and Girls Talent Pathway with the FA as part of the Education and Welfare team. And shout out to Cecil as well. I have a matchday role at Arsenal. I'm the Licensing and Compliance Officer, and that is my local team, and I do support them a little bit. Black History Month for me, as the guys have touched on, I think it needs to become a little bit more than just the odd few events for October. And I think that's something that conversations like this start to open the doors to what can come next. So I think it should really be a time where we highlight the work that we're doing throughout the year. It shouldn't just be about October. And I hope that the new role that I've taken on at Palace as race equality lead will allow me to try and activate that more across the year. as the guys have mentioned, I think being a part of the education system myself, I do see the pitfalls, and I work with young people from the age of 16 plus. And when it comes to a month like this, we still don't see the level of engagement that we expect for someone at that age. And I really want the future to be that our younger generations are so much more engaged with their history, their future, and start to move away from the global leaders and the global role models, but start to think about the Black British heritage and what we can bring to the table. And that's where I think we do have a way to go. It's very easy to turn to the global Black leaders and role models who are amazing leaders to look to, but we need to start building what this country has and the people that have contributed to this country and the culture and heritage that they bring. And I do think it is quite an exciting time. So hopefully discussions like this will be the springboard for more to happen across the rest of the year as well.
Thanks, Tina. You know what, I'll get straight into it as well. So obviously yesterday everyone has seen the FA news released their new code, the FA's diversity code. So if I come to you first, Matt, because I know obviously you do a lot of great work with your company, the Equals Group, and you obviously work with a lot of forward-thinking organisations. What the challenges have you faced, and what impact do you think, what benefits come from embracing great levels of diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, really good question. I think really timely that the FA have come out with their new engagement approach around equality, diversity, and inclusion. Obviously, we would have all seen over the last couple of months the tendency for organisations or individuals to do the easy stuff. So kneeling, putting up black squares is all recognition of the fact that there is some work that needs to be done. But really digging deep and understanding what that work looks like, what's the commitment that organisations are making. And often there's a tendency for people to really focus on the visible stuff. So there's, especially in football, there's a tendency to focus on players and kind of the diversity of on-pitch talent without the same focus on kind of what goes on backroom. So looking at the boards, looking at coaches, looking at the infrastructure that makes up clubs. And really it's about companies, organisations, football clubs understanding the end-to-end. So what does the end-to-end pipeline look like in terms of talent, in terms of coaches, in terms of the boardroom, and moving away from kind of the tokenry approaches to saying, you know, we've got one black person on the board, that's enough. Really looking at the area, looking at kind of the composition of the local talent pool, and being kind of challenging of themselves. So what you really want to get away from is kind of this social media dynamic that a lot of people have, that say, you know, as long as our pictures look good, that's kind of all we're aiming for. You want companies to be progressive, to look for opportunities, because again, this is about really creating an environment where everybody can thrive, regardless of your colour, regardless of your gender, regardless of your level of ability. So for me, the new approach is completely right in terms of the distinction between different groupings. So being really targeted about the concerns in the black community, the concerns with the Asian community, the concerns with kind of people of mixed heritage, accommodating for all of those holistically, and really going on a journey. This isn't something that's going to be fixed by a month of people kneeling. It's not going to be fixed by black squares. It's about really digging deep and getting under the cover of what are some of the systemic barriers. So from recruitment to performance management, I think some of my panel, the other panel members, have shared their experiences with the game. It's about looking for opportunities to ensure that people have generally positive experiences with the game, regardless of their background.
Thanks for that, Mac. Kasha, just to draw your experience in at this point. So you work in the foundation side of your club. It'll be interesting to see your thoughts on what role you think the community organisations play in helping the football clubs achieve those goals. I obviously work in the foundation setting as well, and I can see that we, for some reason, are a little bit ahead of the football clubs when it comes to engaging with different communities? And what do you think is that gap and that bridge between the community and the football club itself?
Yeah, really good question, actually. I think it depends on the outreach as well that you can, and what areas in terms of your impacting and prioritising, I think is also, and what you've got around you, and partnerships is really a key thing that I've looked at recently, especially over the last year, and in the summer times, and quite what links in quite well with what we focused on in the last year. But it's really good that it's been highlighted now, as a lot of the food poverty stuff that Marcus Rashford's highlighting, and we targeted Merton quite a bit from last year to put on summer programs and things like that, and really get closer to the community and offer them free programs with free food, and really then dive into how that helps and how that gets to know them. If we can provide it and put it on, then we can actually offer something and grow our relationship with them. And I think that's, to be honest with you, I think that's worked quite well with us, because then you're showing that these kids, as they're coming through, they are supporting like bigger teams and things like that, and they're seeing players who play for them, but they're not really seeing teams at maybe a lower level, but they're seeing what their club and the foundation, the communities are doing for them. So that might be a way of drawing them in, and also helping them support the club, and vice versa. So I think it's what you've got to offer to them, for them to like jump on board with you is a massively big key in that. And that's worked for us quite well, as I said, like recently and over the last year.
Brilliant. It's good to hear that you obviously can see some of those changes happening and your impact on the ground. Cecil, just to pull you in at this stage, you mentioned that you had a stint of playing yourself, and you considered your role within football being a professional athlete, and then you obviously changed your route, you changed your pathway. But we just mentioned Marcus Rashford. He's become a really positive role model, and not just for the Black community. I hope everyone can look at him and say he's just a model human. These are the things that we should be addressing, and it shouldn't really come down to a player really to say these things. We should really have this kind of support in place, and these conversations should be supported. But what do you think the impact of role models such as Marcus Rashford, so other professionals that are speaking up for causes that they believe in and taking a stand against these issues, what do you think that impact is on young professionals or those who aspire to remain within football?
I think they're role models in general, especially sporting athletes, it's massive. I think they're huge. Like I've been lucky enough across my career to meet many of these people that we speak of. Marcus Rashford's definitely one of them. I've worked with him many a times. I've worked with him when he first signed his big contract for 80 grand a week at the age of 18. Bought his mum a house that week, and that was my first shoot with him. And even from then, you could just tell he's very unselfish in the way he carries himself. He's very mature. He spoke with me. He always signed stuff for me about any complaints. I know it sounds like showing off, but he's very just like, it's fine, whatever you need, shirts. I've got framed paper of his signature to me. So he's very caring. I knew he's that sort of person. Again, Anthony Joshua as well, when I met him, he was exactly the same, if I'm honest. He's one of my role models, same with Rashford, only but due to I've seen it firsthand. So I know a lot of people can sometimes get criticism when they're high profile, that like they can't be this role model person or have this persona all the time, but they really do. Like Anthony Joshua, I remember he was getting shouted at by his management saying, we have to leave, but he was there like, no, let me just speak to this person, and he was signing stuff for fans. He sent Under Armour gear to kids of families that he was working with on the day. They're all, to me, I think, just people, not just Black athletes. I know there's other role models out there, but what I've met firsthand, I know that they really are these people, and it's really important because they've inspired me to go on. And I've got a company now where I mentor every footballer that I speak to and help them if they're going through hard times. And it kind of came from meeting these other role models that I had, and thought, you know what, I want to be more like you guys and give back. So they're so important. I hope all the people listening, if it's family, if it's parents listening, or young children in this meeting, please make sure you make sure you have a role model to look up to, and it's the right one as well, because there's a lot that it can bring to your own life, I believe. So
Thanks. So that just takes me nicely on to Cornelius as well, because like I said, when we had a chat, I know you did an article last month or a few months back, which I saw in The Guardian, And you said when they came down, you thought it would be around the great work you guys do at Tooting and Mitcham and the number of players that sign for professional clubs. But the conversation went round towards the lack of black coaches and black managers in the National League. How have you dealt with players who, you know, come out from the top, fall down into the lower leagues? You know, what work do you do to ensure, you know, to put them kids back into the professional game?
For us, we try to, like, obviously what we're doing now at Tooting and Mitcham is not how can I put it? It's not rocket science. We just give the kids opportunities. We get them to play. You know, a lot of people, you know, come down and say, oh, what these guys doing down there? They must be doing something different. We just give them opportunities to play on the pitch. Going off when we was talking about when the newspapers came down to have a chat with us, it was a bit disheartening because it was one of those where you thought, okay, yeah, all the hard work you've done, you're going to get some sort of recognition, and then to find out it's all about, you know, we were just adding to what Sterling and what Rashford had said on the newspaper the previous week, you know. And it was a bit disheartening, but at the same time, for me, I did get to say that, look, you know, for us, you know, black minorities or whatever, you know, we need to just keep on going. You know, there's still opportunities in this country, in the game, to still go forward. You know, and that was the same thing we used to have with players. Some players would come down from the higher leagues and they would be saying, oh, they didn't get the opportunity. Some of them thought it was because of their race, their background. And, you know, for us, we always used to say, look, you've got to put the work in. You've got to, you know, do what you can. So at least when the opportunity comes around, you know, it's nothing to do with race. It's nothing to do with your background. It's nothing to do with anything. Because a lot of people play that race card or play the, oh, you know, they've not been given the opportunity. And then when it gets given to them, they're not ready, you know. So we put in the, you know, me and the coaches at Tooting were part-time coaches, you know, but at the end of the day, we're actually full-time because we're talking to the players, like what Cecil was saying. He's got a company that he helps players out and stuff, you know, and we're generally doing that. Since I've been on this call now, I've had 3 players calling me for completely different things away from football, you know. And you know, people laugh at that. My wife always laughs at me, saying to me that, oh, you think you're part-time, but you're actually full-time, you know, for what we do. And I think that's where we've been able to have that success with these players, because we've not done the semi-professional route of just turning off your phone when you've come out from the football ground. We're constantly on these players over and over again, because there's a reason why they've dropped out of the football league. There's a reason why, you know, they've been dropped from these teams. It's not only because of these things they're saying about race or, you know, their background and stuff. Some of the times it's just, you know, they've not been taught these life skills, you know, and we generally try to do that at Tooting and Mitcham. And that's not only about just football. It could be about education. It could be about, you know, getting them back into the workforce. You know, just loads of different things, to be fair.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that, mate. I've been following your results, and, you know, hopefully a lot of your young players will go on professional as well. Kasha, if I just come back to you, because I know you've taken up a new role recently at AFTV Wimbledon. I know you become their EDI lead. What have you been doing to get the messaging out there about Black History Month? I know you mentioned some books, and how can, you know, people find out a bit more about the work you're doing as well?
Yeah, so like I said, this month has been it's only since September, so I've only just recently started. So and Black History Month coming in straight after has been like quite good for me to be able to express myself through this role. And as I said, the key thing for me is educating, because I just don't think enough of that was done, and schools are only limited on what they are showing, and it could be negative. So I'm trying to just highlight a lot of positives. So each week I've kind of gone through, given out some sort of books. So we're going to be week 5 this week. I won't give any spoilers, but over the last couple of weeks we've had a good few. So we started with Black Heroes, so nice and positive, just highlighting. I was actually got it from my nephew. He had the book, so I actually went through it myself, and I thought it was really, really inspirational book. It's just highlighting loads of leaders through history, but all around the world. So we've got British Black people in the book as well, so you can actually identify with. The second week as well was really key because in fact it's one of our participants that went to our session, so I've since coming in as well. Last year a lot of my stuff was around women and girls football, so starting up the player development centre, one of our participants from there, her mum wrote a book, as I said, like highlighting some kids who could actually identify with the book, and she wrote it literally simply because there wasn't a book out there already that her kid could identify with and respond to. So it was called Clever Carmel, and it's about her trying to incorporate her mum's Nigerian side with her dad's English side, and not thinking that she has to just pick, you know, because she lives in England and disregard the other side, sort of thing. So it's about incorporating, bringing two cultures together, which I think was really good and really nice. And then we've had like Young, Gifted and Black, again, going back to positive leaders and roles and things that have gone on. And this week, one for mainly as well for adults, but Akala natives. So that was one I was really excited to put out there because, yeah, really good book. And Akala obviously speaks a lot of sense if you listen to him, and is really good at putting his points across for everyone to understand. So those have been our last 4 weeks, and I thought that is something that's not just too much forced on you, and I think it's actually got quite a good response. I've had colleagues coming up to me saying they're excited every week as well to see what the next book is on a Friday, which is kind of what we want, is it being that a bit of excitement and it carrying through to other months as well, not just staying in October. It's looking at what you can learn here, but it's everlasting as well.
That sounds really good, and I kind of wish we did this talk at the start of the month so that I could follow your book club now, because I feel like we've just missed out on it all.
It's on Instagram, you can go back to it, it's fine, it's all on there for the last couple of weeks, and yeah, we've still got one more this Friday as well.
Awesome, we'll keep an eye out for it. Mac, so you said you provide support to organisations, and what do you think the uptake has been given this year's circumstances? Summer was quite emotive for everyone, and then leading into Black History Month, what has been the interest from organisations to try and do better?
Yeah, really good question. I think the initial response to George Floyd was kind of quite arbitrary. So obviously you saw the black squares being put up, and organisations releasing statements about their support of Black Lives Matter, the movement, and generally kind of this atmosphere of racial tolerance. What was positive about that was that a lot of black staff and colleagues then went back and challenged their leaders to say, you know, what does it mean? What does that look like? What are you actually going to commit to other than words? There were also organisations that got deeply criticised about, you know, the essentially audacity of saying that you support Black lives whilst simultaneously mistreating, underpaying, devaluing black staff. And that really caused a lot of organisations to look internally and say, actually, what are we doing? You know, what could we be doing more of? I guess what we've seen as an organisation since then is a deeper commitment from some companies to really understand the experiences of their black staff. So we've done kind of focus groups, workshops, educating organisations on systemic racism. What does it look like? What does it mean? And also distinguishing between the nuances to race. So often people consider themselves not to be racist, or consider organisations not to be racist because they don't, you know, use racial slurs, or they don't openly act in a racist manner, without understanding the nuance to systemic racism. So there are things that are built into your policies and your procedures, things that you do unconsciously that could have racist outcomes, rather than being intentionally racist. So it's really just educating people about that nuance, and understanding that even if your intention isn't racist, the manifestation of some of the things that you do, the way that you say things, the way that you articulate things could be deemed to be racist. Also educating people on things like microaggressions. So looking at the subtleties of how you communicate, the way that you engage with people, and really kind of the contextual side of things. In terms of, I guess, going forward, what we've seen with the organisations that we've worked with is an understanding that this isn't something that is easy to fix. You know, we're talking about decades, if not centuries, of systemic racism and kind of overcoming the unconscious bias that we all kind of have, and a lot of that comes from the way that we've been educated, the way that we understand the world through the media, through politics, and that is something that can't be overwritten overnight. So I think it's been a bit bittersweet in that we've obviously had to deal with race and the dynamics of race whilst also dealing with COVID, and I think that whole dynamic has been difficult for organisations to reconcile, but to some extent it's actually been the perfect opportunity, because we're having to look at differences in people's experiences, differences in how people are able to engage in the workplace, engage with sport, engage with just having conversations and living your life. So I think there's a certain amount of empathy that's come at this time, whether that's a direct result of COVID or whether that's a result of kind of where we are socially. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that was really insightful. So we touched on the fact that this year was really emotive, and it's been really difficult for people for various reasons. And I guess there's been a lot of crossover in big things that have changed in our lives. So it's been quite difficult for people to manage that change and to make sure that they're keeping quite positive. And one of the things we've all discussed about today's discussion is how we want to try and empower people and inspire people and keep it quite positive despite what's going on around us. So Cecil, just coming back to you, you obviously mentioned that you did change your route, and at one stage in your life it may have been quite difficult to deal with moving out of professional football and thinking I have to do something different, but you did that, you overcame that. So I guess what can you take from that, and how do you think those experiences have now, fast forward to 2020, helped you with dealing with some of this? And how do you think people should manage what they're dealing with now and say, you know what, this will make me stronger for the next big thing that happens to me?
Okay, hi. This is a big question. This is going to be, I'll try and get everything in and keep it punctual, because yeah, I'm excited about this question. So let me just break it down. So moments. So obviously I signed as a footballer. I thought it was my dream. This is every boy's dream, to be a professional footballer. That was it. I thought this was it. Got treated really bad by my manager, and this is not like a sob story to be like, oh, I never made it because of him. He's literally, we've been treated awfully. He's been reported. He's been blacklisted. It was a serious case. It was really bad. So then I was going to kind of get through it as quick as can. I then fell out of love with the sport. In my second year, I went on loan to Tooting and Mitcham. So yeah, so you've been there for a year. Done really well. Actually, I enjoyed it most at Tooting and Mitcham, if I'm honest, because I was away from the stressful and toxic environment I had at Crawley. So yeah, big up Tooting and Mitcham and big up my man. So yeah, then after football, after I said, you know what, I had enough. I got released. I got released at 18, and I took a risk. I feel like players, I knew when to quit. I think that's like one of the biggest messages here. Like a lot of my friends who were players, they stayed on and tried to carry on and tried to chase the dream and find a new club. And you can get caught in a cycle doing that for a period of time. But instead I said, you know what, I want to do something completely different. I want to do performing. And I did that. I luckily got the opportunity to go to an open day for Italia Conti. It was a boys' open day. And I was never a dancer. Everyone watching, I was never a dancer, okay? All I could do, I was more of like I could call it an entertainer. I could do a little Millie Rock. I could do a wall, like all the dances that all like the footballers do, the celebrations, the handshakes, all the things that were trending, let's say. The Dougie at the time was very popular. That was basically my level of dance. I'd never imagined me being a year down the line in a ballet studio in ballet tights, trying to hold my leg and point my toe. So it was a whole new world for me. And if I'm honest, it's the hardest training I've ever done, but it bettered me, one, as a player. I'm the best I've ever been footballing wise last season and probably this season now, because I'm very much in tune with my body through dance. I took so much from dance and put it into my football game. What I mainly took from it was that I need to be strong within myself. So when I was very depressed and upset when I was a footballer, because I thought it was my dream and it wasn't, and football wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I was very easy manipulated by my manager. When I left football, I said, I'll never be this Cecil again. Don't want to be the same person I was then. Easy to walk over. My happiness was through someone else. I was only happy when my manager was happy, because I felt like he had the power to give me a contract and another contract, and it was a very dangerous place to be. I left football and then went to the dance industry and performing and the entertainment world, and a lot of it is auditions, and you go and do a casting, you get no's, you get doors slammed in your face. I mean, I go to castings every week. Well, before I started this job, I was at castings 3 times a week, and you get used to hearing no, you get tougher skin. And if I'm honest, it just kind of built me to a place where I was so in tune with myself. I knew what I was strong at. I knew how to work a room. I could do all that, and that all came from football. And that's why I created my company, Talent Transfer. Where I talk about transferable skills from one industry to another, and I help young footballers in the times where things seem really hard to basically elevate. I feel like my journey taught me how to understand who I am and how to overcome adversity. Like I said, I went from football to ballet. I went into a place where I trained my whole life for football, and then into a ballet studio with kids that have been dancing from the age of 3, and I've only just rocked in out of a football contract through my first year. But yet I overcame all the boys and the performers and had an amazing career so far. Hopefully it continues. But yeah, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's been a good journey. Obviously, there's lots to go. I'm currently obviously at AFTV, really enjoying myself as a presenter. Had amazing opportunities from it so far. So hopefully it continues. And yeah, you can do anything. Anyone listening, trust me, you can do anything. I promise you. Don't let anyone ever tell you anything else, whether it's your race or your ability, if you've had disadvantages in life. Like, I got told I was never going to be a footballer by my teachers. I'd done that. I got told when I went to dance school, you need to have training from when you're young. You have no technique. I've literally danced in front of thousands, done performances, worked with Little Mix. I've acted, presented, modelled. I've done it all. You can do it all, everyone. That is my strong message, and I'll always be here to speak to anyone if they need advice. But that's what I also want to say. Anything is honestly possible. You just have to put your mind to it. Cool.
Thank you so much. And it is really good to see how positive you've made the career pathway for yourself, and the way you have moved between different areas of work. And yeah, it's really positive to see you in your new role, and we're looking forward to seeing more from you. Cornelius, so you said you support young athletes too, and young people. And what do you think the advice could be for any young people or people working with young people and young talent? What do you think we can take away from this year and the way things have changed so much, and we've had to spend so much time alone or at home with family? What do you think we should take forward, and what should we try and embrace when things start to move back into normality?
That's a big question. And for me, I feel I've always said to the young athletes coming up, whether they're trying to push forward and be athletes, whether they're trying to be coaches, I've always said to them, better themselves, because you're going to have a lot of people that's going to come back and tell you their stories. You know, some of them is going to be positive, some of it's going to be negatives. But for me, at the end of the day, if you've organized yourself where you've worked on every single thing about yourself holistically, you're able to, it makes it easier for you to weather the storm. Or look at Cecil, he's gone from one expertise into another. You know, he's gone against people that's been, you know, trained at it since they were 3 years old, and look at him now. He's glowing, he's laughing, he's joking. It's so positive. You know, I'm even got goosebumps just listening to his story. And for me, like, at the end of the day, when I went into coaching, at a time it became a bit disheartening when I was coaching at Chelsea Development, because I thought, you know, we were going to get the opportunity to go into the academy and, you know, coach there. That was my main thing I wanted to do. And I've seen a lot of other younger coaches just going in front of me, just going past me, you know, different reasons I was being given. And I just said to myself, you know what, I can stay here and moan and, you know, say it's my skin color, or say it's my background, or say it's because I wasn't a professional footballer, or I can just do something about it. So for me, I said to myself, look, you know what, I'm going to go backwards to go forward. And that's always been my thing, you know. So as I said, I went back, did more qualifications. I did a degree, in sports coaching, which really helped me. That degree helped me a lot because one of my lecturers became my mentor, and he helped me out because he had gone through all the things that I am going through. Apart from that, I now went back into some professional coaching, and I just said to myself, you know what, I'm going to make a name for myself, and I'm going to slowly go up the ranks myself. It might be going up the league, it might be just helping young athletes. In the space of 2 to 3 seasons, we've probably had the most pros at that level. And sometimes it's funny. I'm not one of them people that glow and anything like that, because it's the club at the end of the day and it's our setup. But it is sad that it goes over a lot of people's heads and you wonder why. But yeah, to answer your question, for me, I'd always say the young athletes and young kids, the young people that's coming through, I would always say to them, just try and better yourself. Because at the end of the day, the opportunity is going to come to you. Are you going to be ready? And that's always been my thing. I want to go into the pro game of coaching, and if that opportunity does come around for me, am I going to be ready? I'm going to have the experience. I'm going to have the qualifications. Have I done enough? Someone asked me the other day, you've helped boys come from, nowhere into the pro game. Why have you not been looked at, to coach in that pro realm? And for me, I'm not going to start moaning and saying, oh, it could be this, could be that. I'm just going to keep on going, because I'm hopeful that I'm going to get that opportunity, and I'm looking to take it. So that would always be my message to the young and up and coming. Just keep on improving yourself as much as you can. And as Cecil said, if people saying no to you, you go around it. You keep on going. And change the storyline, because I am tired of going onto Sky Sports or going in the newspaper and it's the same stories over and over again of how people have been dismissed. There's not been no opportunities, and it goes on and on and on. And, I think I love what everyone is doing to the cause, but we have to keep on pushing. We've got to keep on showing the success stories, and, I'm tired of, us coming onto TV or coming out here and it's the same story. Oh, you've won. You're the first black coach to win 20 games in a row. Oh, you're the first lady to do this. It shouldn't be about that. It shouldn't be about gender. It shouldn't be about race. It should be about, oh, this individual has done a solid job, and that's the view I'm trying to go on.
Yeah, no, Cornelius, really appreciate you sharing that as well. And I think that's a great message for just anyone trying to get into the game, because obviously, like you said, you went away, you actually did your degree in coaching as well. And, you're bringing young players through into the system. And hopefully in the future, you will get your chance. I'm hoping that new diversity code by Paul Elliott, people will get the chance to interview. But we all know as well, football, how it works. It's all about who you know and the networks. And we can't hide away from that. And that is a fact. I work in the industry, I speak to a lot of coaches, managers, and someone gets the sack and the same day someone's in place. Yeah. So in terms of, being open, transparent, I'd be interested to see how this diversity code would really work. And if who's been interviewed for those roles, and if a black or Asian or minority ethnic will be interviewed. So that's something I think we can all keep an eye on. This coming to you, Kasha. So, you've got your new role. You play for QPR. You do some great work in AFTV Wimbledon. What's the future for you? Where can we see in the future?
Well, good question. I think, to be honest with you, just keeping on like what you've literally basically highlighted is just keeping on going, but trying to grow not only myself, but looking at how we can get as many young people on the right pathways to develop and give them the right opportunities to be able to get into the game and make it look like what we feel like it should look like as well, very inclusive and the picture that we see. So if you're trying to get into a community and link with them, I think it's really important to have coaches that look like them as well, have come from that community going through. So it's about giving back and allowing them to give back, and that can be continuous. But if it doesn't start somewhere, then I just think it's not gonna get wheels. So for me personally, keeping on trying to level up with my coaching. Obviously not ideal, but this year, but I was going for my UEFA B, and that's something I've wanted to do for a while. So I'm definitely not gonna stop looking at that and how I can get onto that, and keep on going from there. I mean, I've got a couple of years probably left of playing, but on the coaching pathway is now looking at how I can build the full picture, and I'm always looking to add extra things. So even outside of football, other sports and things like that, I'm always looking to pick them up, and look at probably even linking even more. I can link with the youth, so youth worker level 2 and things like that. I'm trying to like broaden out now, and really push on.
Nah, brilliant. I think that's good to diversify your work as well. Cigdem, I'm going to come to you next. Obviously, I've got to know you pretty well the last 2-3 years. We've done some great work together with the Rehman Foundation. I know the work you do at Palace and at Chelsea and West Ham. So, what drives you, and where can we see you in the future? Where does your heart really lie in terms of, in EDI and, just generally in terms of work?
I don't think I even have the answer to where I see myself. But I think the last few months have been really difficult for me on a personal note, and football's always been a massive part of my family life, and I guess culturally we're very big on football anyway. So I'm already at a stage where I should really be able to reflect and say I'm really proud of where I've come to, despite what people think or despite the barriers that people have tried to put in front of me. And one of the things that I've started to say to myself, and to be fair to the Surrey FA guys that interviewed me for like the IAG introduction, I start to deflect questions that are about what holds us back. And I've come to the point where I can be very honest, and I want to be able to put this through to young people that I work with as well, and say, yes, there are barriers, and actually some of them feel like physical barriers. However, the biggest barrier begins with you. If you feel like you're putting too much importance on what people think you can and can't do, it starts to grate on you and your self-esteem and your confidence to just go for it. And I'd say I've had one of the hardest experiences this year, but it's helped me realize that I just have to go for it no matter what. And I guess I'm probably where the barrier starts. If I don't hold myself back, then there shouldn't be a limit to what I can achieve, based on the purpose that I give to myself and what drives me. And that's on a very individual, personal note. And that's something that I want to start helping young people resonate with, and even young professionals. I see a lot of people make it to football clubs and foundations, and they can't seem to just get to that next level. And I think as a community, we have that responsibility to use the minds. For example, around this table, you're so inspiring. We need to make sure that people can see you more, put you in a more visible place so that they can see that actually it is achievable. We need to get down there, get on the ground and tell people, right, this is where you want to get to. Let's work on what those gaps are. What is it that you need to work on as an individual? Do you know how to brand yourself? These are things that I was avoiding. I don't really like to use social media too much. I don't like to ask people for favors. I don't like to mingle with people too much. But Riz, in the last year or so, everyone that meets me says, you're so good at networking. And I don't think that's one of my confidence areas, but it has to be. For me to get to the places that I hope to get to, it's something that I need to be just as good at doing as other people. And others in the network know that it really is about people and the conversations that you have. And we do have a little bit of control to put ourselves in those environments and around those tables. And once we then have that responsibility to do it and do it well, so that we can pull more people forward, and not just physically getting them into roles, but showing them that we can do it and that they can do it as well. And I think that's one of the things that's really started to drive my passion for EDI, because I'm starting to see the same things happening with the same faces and the same voices and the same opinions, and it's not actually changing what's happening on the ground. When I speak, I don't want to just speak or make changes for myself or to put myself on a platform, but I want what I'm saying to be able to resonate with people and actually get them to practically and actively get to the places that they also want to be. And I think that's one of the biggest hold-offs for EDI, is that we're having the same conversations, we're signing these codes of practice and these standards, but what are we actually doing? You're a role model, Riz. I could be classed as a role model. Mac, you're part of the Surrey FA, etc. But what are we doing? What are we physically doing? What is our place? What is the voice that we have? it's not just about getting to the positions, but it's about using them. And that's something that's obviously going to drive me for as long as I can continue to work in the industry. And thanks, Mac, and keep pushing to hopefully get to the places where I feel like I really do have a voice and a purpose.
No, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that as well. Very inspiring. I'm sure a lot of the guys and the young people and adults on the call here today will hopefully, leave feeling infused, learn a lot more about the guys on the call, the panel members, which I've obviously thank you all for your time for. I'm hoping, like similar to Cigdem, I'd like to believe we share similar values. In fact, hopefully all of us on this call share similar values. We want to get into position of change, and we want to make change as well. We can't just see people in positions for themselves, but not giving that helping hand to others. And I think that's the key here. I think the key is giving that helping hand and reaching out to those who want to get to where you are as well. And Cecil, I've read about your journey. I do a lot of work at the PFA, and I think you're a great role model in terms of inspiring other young players. There's a lot of young players coming out of the game now who need role models and mentors of people who have been there as well. And even yourself, Cornelius, we do a lot of work with black managers and black coaches in the professional game, but what about the managers and players in the lower levels of the game? If we can help you and really support your journey to get into the National League and League 2, League 1, work your way up, then why not? You're bringing the young players through. Clubs are using more and more young players. So I think it's important that you are given the opportunity. And for yourself, Kasha, I do a lot of work with community trusts and foundation. I don't see many, black women working full time in the game. I do a lot of talks to young people at clubs who have a passion for that. So, before this call, I wasn't aware about your work. I'm hoping now that you can make yourself visible, get yourself heard, and keep inspiring other young people within the community, not just the black community, but all communities to get into football. And I do a lot of work around Asian players and Asian coaches. We're probably the most represented community in the UK in terms of demographics, but they're probably the least represented. And yourself, Mac, was obviously, because I'm going around the table here, but for us to have you on board and your experience and the great work you're doing, I think it's important. The policies, the governance side of things, and I think it's important that everyone pulls together from bottom to top and top to bottom. So I'm hoping that you've all enjoyed being on the call. Hopefully we can all stay in contact as well. And if there's any questions from the audience, I know James, there's a couple of questions, but if not, then I'm happy to call it a night. But I want to thank you all for your time as well.
Thanks, Riz. And as you said, that's some amazing inspirational stories there. It's, for me personally, been really fascinating. I just want to bring in a couple of questions that we've had. Firstly, a fairly quick one, I think. Daniel asks Cornelius where you took your degree. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about it. Yeah, in Roehampton University. So they had a specialized course for sports culture. So it wasn't only about for football, it was about how to run a business. It had a lot of things inside it, how to do analysis, had science in it, had loads of things. It was so holistic. It was fantastic. Best thing I did.
Brilliant. Thanks, Cornelius. Would you recommend it? Says
100%. 100%. I think for even recruiting, I feel when you go out there and you're trying to obviously advertise yourself as a coach, and they're seeing that you've got a degree, it helps you, because it's not just a tick that he's got a degree, but he's obviously coming with some sort of experience. I've really had to go back to my degree for loads of things that I've gone through with football right now. So it really does help you.
Brilliant, thank you. And just a question we had submitted from Lindsay, and it's a really interesting question. She asks where the word BAME comes from, so the acronym, and maybe there's some issues with that as a kind of catch-all phrase. And Riz, I know we sort of spoke about that briefly before the call, and you mentioned something about the work that the PFA are actually doing at the moment.
Yeah, so BAME, obviously Black, Asian, Minority and Ethnic. It's been used, it used to be BME. I know a lot of trade unions would say BME, Black, Minority, Ethnic, but in terms of football, I think in the past everyone's just been grouped under one. I think there's a lot of talk now where, you got time to separate it, because if we're talking about numbers and we're talking about stats and we're talking about people in position, I want to see, in terms of representation, diversity. We talk about black. I want to see black people on the board, Asian people on the board, minorities on the board, ethnics on the board. People with disabilities on the board as well. So it's important to see people from all protected characteristics, on boards in positions of power as well. So yeah, it's just an acronym for Black, Asian, Minority, and Ethnic. If you ask me where it come from, I couldn't really tell you, to be honest. Maybe Google it, but yeah, that's where the acronym really is.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Riz. I think that's all question-wise. So I think we'll call it a day there. But I just want to say a massive thank you, and I'm sure Sally will echo this from Surrey FA to everyone that's joined tonight on the panel, and also to everyone that's tuned in. We really appreciate it. Some fantastic speakers, and I'm sure we'll be in touch with all of you again to sort of follow up with some other content. And thanks to Riz and Cigdem for hosting tonight.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice evening.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Peace. Ladies.